Even though we started maybe a couple minutes behind, we got through the presentation in about an hour. And really, we'd like to pause now, allow you some time to maybe collect your thoughts and provide us with any questions, comments, remarks. Use the question panel that's in front of you in the webinar. Please go ahead and submit your comments. We'll share what that question or the comment is with everybody else on the line, and then talk about it and talk about what we might know about it, or you know, some of these questions or comments might be something that we just simply have to consider as we're building our toolkits. So I'll wait. It looks like people are thinking. That's all I can tell right now. Hey, while we're waiting, it recurred to me as you asked one of your questions, Frank, a little bit about protecting the data, and you had mentioned in our research that we had done that we didn't find any YouTube videos that showed somebody's flight data analysis events. Now, the ones that we did find were public investigations, or they were simply a demo of somebody's software. So that's not to say that there wasn't any flight data analysis videos out there. It just means that there wasn't something that was coming from an individual operator's safety management system program that, you know, that is their own internally investigated incident or event.
Well, that begs another question. So can either you or Greg think of forums where this type of display would be, you know, available? It strikes you that it would probably be behind closed doors, and you'd have to be sworn to secrecy,
yeah,
not spreading the word about what you've learned. But can you think of any meetings or?
Well, certainly I've participated in the FAA's InfoShare, and that is a place where you do have to walk into the room and basically be reminded of the sort of regular rules of conduct in participating in that meeting, and those rules basically commit you to keeping the contents of what's shared in that meeting within the meeting, and not to divulge that to other people. And that is normally a meeting where individuals are checked for their registration badges, and the registration badges have those codes of conduct right on the back side. So you're not even allowed into the room if you don't have a valid registration badge.
There's also a number of industry associations with member airlines that have their own meetings, closed-door meetings, where certain events may be discussed within the room, and some of the alliances also have similar meetings as well.
That's true. Well, we do have a question here. I'll comment on it. Let's see. It says, how do you calculate the data for the SPI dashboard? Well, that depends on what it is that you're tracking. I have seen some folks use, and you know, some of this can be better explored when you go and look at the SPI survey, but I've seen some airlines that might have as part of their flight safety metrics a culmination or an additive summary of all of the specific events in their flight data analysis programs, those that they consider of great concern, and those then are divided by the number of departures that you are experiencing in any given period, whether it's monthly or quarterly. And that gives you basically a rate, and that might be displayed in a rate per 1,000 or 10,000 operations. Now, the ones that we showed in this event and in this webinar were not really specified. It was simply showing the types of displays that might be used. And so you'll probably have to take a look at what we found in some of our SPI surveys that have been conducted so far, and just imagine that some of those things could be combined in a way that show a metric for an organization that is highly customized to that organization.
You might also track rates of soft alerts and hard alerts, and these can be alerts for a whole range of parameters. You could even have them for deep landings. So you might have soft alerts and hard alerts set at for touchdowns so far down the runway. If you're actually putting in place a mitigating strategy to prevent, for example, runway overruns, you might be very interested to monitor the hard alert rate to test the effectiveness of any of the mitigating strategies you put in place. So how you actually use those SPIs and actually put them on a dashboard will be probably dependent upon the individual airline and what their key measures of tracking and performance are. But that's just one example.
Thanks. Yeah, there's many examples of that, and I'm glad you asked the question, because that particular slide where we showed a dashboard wasn't intended to be specific metrics that we have the exact calculation for. It's typical, but it's not something that we created to show specifically a calculation on. All right. Any other questions that we can respond to?
I have a question. Would data visualization fit into this realm of dashboards?
Data visualization, I see data visualization as a tool to kind of better understand a specific flight, especially the ones we showed today via the YouTubes. But safety performance indicators are generally things that are measured across multiple flights or multiple events. And so safety performance indicators are something you're tracking to make sure that you're getting better and better performance, and less of the special events that are captured or triggered through a flight data analysis program.
And of course, safety performance indicators could be, they're not just flight events, correct? I mean, you could track them for airside ground operations and things like that.
Yeah, in the chart that we showed, one of the departments was ground operations, and I've seen at many airlines where the type of events that are used for the safety performance indicator on ground operations has to do with aircraft damage or possibly injury, and so there are a lot of measured events like that, and it's not just flight data analysis programs.
The discussion reminds me of an article that we have in the May issue of Aero Safety World online on flightsafety.org. United Airlines has come up with a fairly easy to implement data visualization program at their airports across their system, where they are tracking things like workplace injuries, type of injuries, ramp damage, and they've created maps of airports that show where the trouble spots are at the airports, and then they go down to the level of showing a human figure and where the most common injuries are and how they occur at at various airports across their system. And United maintains that they're fairly easy to implement.
Yeah. I think we talked a little bit about different visualization tools in our last webinar, and heat maps are definitely one of them, or bubble charts, you might say, where the size of the bubble is proportional to the rate of occurrence in a particular geographic area. The visualizations that we were showing today are more related to a flight, but there's a number of other visualization tools that help in terms of analysis when combined with a risk assessment.
Just on that, Frank, United Airlines provided an excellent presentation at last year's IASS in Dubai on that. That was very amply demonstrated to the audience at that seminar.
All right, folks, we have to thank you once again for participating with us today. If you do have any other comments, questions, as we mentioned before, go ahead and see our website. You can also send me, this is Mark Millam, an email, and I will do my best to get back to you in terms of anything you offer. That is Millam, M-I-L-L-A-M, @flightsafety.org. So thanks, have a great day, and glad you were with us. Please stay tuned for the next webinars, and join us for those at the end of this month of June, or of July, and the following month in August. Thanks a lot. And we covered our presentation on Jiseop. At this point, we'd like to field any sort of questions, and on your screen there is the capability of submitting questions. We'll gladly speak to any of those. And remember, sometimes these are just comments. Comments will be noted. Perhaps it's some things that you're thinking that maybe we should provide a little bit more research or study when it comes to how we speak to it in our toolkits. So go ahead and use that tool on the webinar, and we'll let folks know what sort of comments and questions are coming up.
Very quiet so far.
Got a comment from somebody saying that thanks for the very professional, informative briefing. That's always appreciated. That's great. And we'll hold if there's other thoughts, other comments.
Remember that even though the webinar is about to conclude, if you've got any other questions or any other thoughts or feedback, anything that you can provide to us is very much appreciated. So you can send that through to us. That would be great.
Jack asks, is Flight Safety Foundation working in South America? And the short answer is yes, but let me tell you a little bit about how. As we've been doing our work, and it's in two large regions of the world, Pan America and Asia Pacific, one of the key stops on our travels is to participate in the regional aviation safety groups that are part of ICAO. And there's two offices in Pan America for ICAO. One's in Lima, Peru, and the other's in Mexico City. So there's been trips where we presented some of the status of our work at these meetings. Sometimes they're held in those two offices. Sometimes they're hosted by another state or country. And so that has been part of the regular process for Jiseop to make sure that we're coordinating all of the work that we're doing with ICAO and especially these regional aviation safety groups. Comment from somebody that said connecting with the webinar was easy and effective. The Fort Hill speaker's audio was clipped. Otherwise, an excellent event, and thank you for that. We did notice there was some dropout as Tim was speaking, and we'll figure it out on our end and test some things further to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. We did think that we covered and heard most of what he was explaining, and thankfully with Tim's presentation there was a good display of what you can expect in terms of seeing the results of participating in the Safety Performance Indicator Survey. And another person says, hi, Flight Safety Foundation, are the webinars recorded for future reference? Absolutely, they're recorded. In fact, you may even get a notice from GoToWebinar about recordings that are available on this if you've registered for this. But if you haven't registered or you want to spread the word about this, we will be posting recordings on the Flight Safety Foundation website. So if you know somebody who would like to have participated, didn't get a chance to, wants to see a little bit about what we're doing, you can steer them to our website, and if you go to flightsafety.org, there is a GSIP section, and within the GSIP section, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see something about our webinars, and for those that have already concluded, you'll see something in terms of a recording that's been posted there. And those recordings are held out on YouTube. So I think even if you search YouTube, you might be able to find them that way. We've got a YouTube channel for the Flight Safety Foundation. Another comment says, there was also a delay in the slides, but very helpful presentation. Thanks for that. Yep. I hope it wasn't too bad for you in terms of the delay of the slides. We did see how this was being broadcast, and we've got some monitors that are in the room. And I noticed maybe our timing was off just a little bit on some of those slides, but hopefully all of that was well understood. Yeah, another question here. Where will I find the temporary access info for GSIP documents? You should get a separate email that basically tells you, after participating in one of these, your credentials for logging into the system. So if you don't see that in the next, let's say, 24 hours, please feel free to send me an email. This is Mark Millam, and my email, you may have seen it already in some of the reminders, but it's Millam, M-I-L-L-A-M, at flightsafety.org, and I'll help you out with that. Another comment from somebody saying Fort Hill graphics were too small to read on my system. Don't know if it was an issue for others, but just a comment for the future. Well, thanks for that. We'll take a look at it. I know that some of the displays there did get kind of small when you're looking at the countries and some of the selections to drill down. And I know they're doing the best to use the most of the screen size for what their system might be able to show you. But perhaps when you use the actual system, it'll be easier to see. And I know that the display in terms of all the different Pareto charts at the bottom, it was probably difficult. It was even difficult for us to see how they're labeled. But the idea is, we would be giving you a display that ranks the order of occurrences on some of the responses to the survey, and you can drill down and see it for specific select stakeholders or select areas of the world. Another comment coming in, Brazil has the biggest aviation in South America. Shouldn't Flight Safety Foundation open an office here? Well, we would like to be more available all across the world, but frankly, we really only have 2 offices, and one being here in the United States in Alexandria, and one being in Melbourne, Australia. And there's about, I think 20 to 25 people in both of those locations. And so we don't have offices all over around the world. And we do things like this to try to connect more people with the Flight Safety Foundation. So I appreciate the comment. Greg might have something to add to that.
Just on that, this is not directly related to Jiseop, but we are looking at the concept of establishing regional advisory committees in different parts of the world. This helps to extend our level of engagement within the industry, particularly in those parts of the world, not just Brazil, but in other parts where there's a fairly significant growth in aviation, and we think that we can offer a lot of assistance in those developing areas or those areas which are achieving high levels of growth. We have a committee we're about to set up in Asia, and one of the committees that we're looking at doing in the near future, I would say in the next 12 to 18 months, would be one in South America. And certainly we recognise that Brazil is an area of growth. But that's still very much in the early stages of development. But that is one way in which we can help the industry by extending our outreach.
Thanks, Greg. Any other questions or comments? I appreciate this feedback that we've been getting. It helps us to design these better, and where we can make the communication more effective, we really want to do that. So the comments are just as important as any compliments. All right. Well, I don't want to take up more of your time if there isn't any other questions. So why don't we call it a wrap? And again, thank you very much for participating today. It's helped us in terms of understanding the thoughts, opinions, comments, and we will continue on with this project. Be sure to join us for the upcoming webinars on the schedule. So thanks and have a great day.